The meeting of the South Hunterdon Regional Board of Education is called to order. Adequate notice is required by the Open Public Meetings Act, which provided on December 30th, 2021 by posting a notice with the respective clerks of the City of Lambertville, Borough of Stockton, and Township of West Amwell, and advertised on December 16th, 2021 in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Trenton Times newspaper. Please stand for flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Sean Ellis? Here. Jim Gallagher?
Here.
Brian Keyes?
Here.
Sean Lewis?
Here.
Trace Petrulli?
Here.
Diana Purcell?
Here.
Megan Warner?
Here.
Lonnie Todd Marino?
Here.
Kevin Kowaleski?
Here. All right. PTA, LAF update. We will start with PTO. Anybody like the PTO? Jess?
So furiously writing.
Hey guys, Jessica Hardigan, West Amwell, PTO. Stephanie and I were actually going to give remarks about the LEF auction items that we worked so hard on, but she was unable to attend tonight. We had planned to speak together to highlight our collaboration for our LEF auction items. We worked side by side to ensure both communities were equally represented with our auction items, which included Voice of the Day, an Oh Wow Cow ice cream party, and extra recess for your entire class. It was really nice working with her and making sure everything was the same for both schools and both communities, so it was really, really a pleasure. We also co-sponsored the cyber safety event for parents together that was held last month. And then our book fair was last week, and it was incredibly successful. It was so amazing to see so many smiling faces. I'm such a geek when it comes to the book fair. I really look forward to seeing how excited they get about books. A big thank you to Laura Brewer and Jen Cyrack for all of their amazing work. Fun fact, Laura Brewer actually takes off an entire week from her real job to basically live at West Amwell to do the book fair. They spend a great deal of their time on the book fair, and we are so grateful to have them. And also thank you to our book fair committee. Our school kits fundraiser is up and running, and the link can be found on our Facebook page. And all of our students have successfully ordered their field day t-shirts, which is in record time and amazing. So we will be placing that order. And as we said earlier, a mega 50-50 fundraiser that we did in October ensured that every student in the school got a field day t-shirt for free. Stephanie was unable to come, so she asked me to give the PTA remarks tonight, if that's okay. So for LPS, the first ever local book fair will run from April 11th to the 14th in collaboration with Frenchtown Bookshop. All students will attend the fair, and there will be evening hours from 5 to 6 on Wednesday, April 13th during their PTA meeting. There will be a PTA table at Shadfest on April 23rd to the 24th with crafts for kids and a bike raffle. Their annual walkathon fundraiser will be held Friday, April 29th. And the LPS Art in the Community continues with a new exhibit of kindergarten art at Chive Cafe. That's all. Thank you, guys.
Anybody from LAEF? Oh, Wendy's back there. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Wendy Camiotti. I'm stepping in for Janelle, who had a work obligation. So this is my first time here. It's exciting. I just want to thank everybody here, the community, everyone I saw at the auction on Saturday, the board members, the administration. It was our first auction we had back in 2 years. And you know, you kind of don't know how it's going to go. And I can just say that I think everyone would agree that it was a pretty good time. Hopefully, we haven't done our final numbers yet, but I think we've raised a lot of money, and that's thank you to everybody who participates, because we can't do what we do without you supporting us. It was by our 20th anniversary auction, by the way. So the other announcement is that it is scholarship time. The Senior and Summer Scholarship Award applications have been released to the guidance office. The Senior Achievement Awards go to the high school graduating seniors in recognition of their community and academic achievements who are pursuing post-secondary education at an accredited 4-year college, university, 2-year community college, or vocational technical school. The summer program is awarded to high school rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors for summer enrichment programs. If you have any questions at all, please contact Bay Peterson or Carly Isabella Morin. The application deadline is April 4th, Monday, April 4th. One more note about the auction. I just want to say, Kevin, the food was phenomenal. And that comes from the biggest food critic on earth, which is my husband. And he's still asking me for pierogies and why we didn't get leftovers. So there weren't any. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds like an LAEF auction item for next year.
Yeah.
Kevin Kowalski comes to your house.
Pierogies
cooks you
for the year?
pierogies for you and your friends.
My arm could be twisted.
And Wendy, I just wanted to echo, from the district, the Board of Education perspective, it was an awesome event. It was my first one, obviously, in person, right? We didn't have one last year. It was at the park, I think, last year at Lambertville. And it was an amazing event. I was so impressed. I can't imagine all the time and effort that went into pulling that all together with all the auction items and table arrangements and food and all the different things. So you guys should be very proud. Obviously, our students reap the benefits, but it was an amazing evening. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Here, here.
All right, correspondence are all posted. All right. Then we will move now to can't speak. Teachers of the Year, Educational Professionals of the Year.
All right, so this is definitely one of our highlights of the year. It's also nice that we get to do it in person, because last year we did it, but it was virtually because we were still on Zoom. So each year, the Governor's Educator of the Year program honors teachers and educational service professionals throughout the state whose contributions to their students are exceptional. Staff members were nominated by their peers, parents, and students. A committee from each of the 3 schools, consisting of an administrator, staff members, and a parent representative, used the following criteria to select the recipient: exceptional instructional techniques, superior ability to inspire students of all backgrounds and abilities to learn, respect and admiration of students, parents, and colleagues, the ability to foster excellence in education as evidenced by ongoing contributions to the improvement of student achievement and the overall learning environment. At this time, I'm going to ask each of our building principals to come up, and they're going to present their Educator and Educator Service Professionals of the Year. After your introductions, I would ask that you come up and kind of make your way around the inside to shake each board member's hand, and then on your way back, I have a nice flower arrangement and also a nice certificate for you to take home. So at this time, we're going to start off with Mr. Miller from West Amwell.
I'm not positive I understand which way to go, so whoever's first will make it up. So first, our Educator of the Year. Michelle Ryan has been an exemplary health and physical education teacher at West Amwell for the past 6 years. Her enthusiasm and creativity are evident in her engaging lessons and interactions with her students. She gets students moving, excited about health and fitness, and developing lifelong wellness practices. Michelle has also been an asset to our elementary specialist group as a mentor and a collaborator. And our Educational Services Professional of the Year is Jamie Duran. As West Amwell Schools school counselor, Jamie Duran has been able to create counseling and character education programs that transform our students and our school community. She has developed highly effective individual counseling sessions, classroom lessons, student groups, and school-wide programs. Jamie has created a culture that embodies our school motto, at West Amwell School, we are kind and caring.
Come on up, both of our honorees. We're going to kind of make our way around, take some congratulations from the board. LPS, Mrs. Quinones.
I get the cutest helper, by the way. I'm going to start first with Miss Nora Marley. Unfortunately, she was unable to be here today. She is an outstanding paraprofessional LPS. Miss Marley is a lifelong learner and educator of over 20 plus years. Miss Marley works to ensure student success at all levels, whether it's PE or academic. Miss Marley is creative, and she's involved in all aspects of the LPS community. That is in school and out of school as well. Miss Marley has a can-do attitude. LPS would not be the same without her. We're grateful to have Miss Marley at LPS. Congratulations, Miss Marley. All right, and at this time, I'm going to move on to our Teacher Professional of the Year, and that would be Miss Hart. Miss Hart is an essential and very recognized teacher at LPS. She is one of our very finest. Miss Hart has been in education for over 8 years, and she continues to challenge herself while challenging her students and others around her. She continues to learn. She makes every experience valuable, and she makes it all count. At LPS, it is all about teamwork. Miss Hart is a huge part of that team. Without her, we would not have such incredible really experiences like LPS Insider that you see regularly on my Friday emails. Miss Hart makes math come alive with her focus on the application of mathematics, which then makes math more relatable to her students in everyday life. When you enter Miss Hart's classroom, you know you will be challenged respectfully, and you know you will have fun learning every single day. Miss Hart is an asset to LPS. Thank you so much to Miss Hart. And this is Miss Hart's daughter who wants to say thanks, Mom, right?
And next, from the middle school, high school, we have Mrs. McKnight, after her picture.
Our paraprofessional of the year is Mr. Schimmerhorn. Mr. Schimmerhorn has dedicated the last 33 years of his life to educating, empathizing, helping, coaching, and growing students. Mr. Schimmerhorn has the innate ability to motivate students and make them feel good about themselves. He is a true leader in the classroom, on the athletic fields, and in the community. We are very proud to call Mr. Schimmerhorn one of ours. Congratulations, Mr. Schimmerhorn, on a well-deserved honor. Mr. Stevens is an exceptional educator who goes above and beyond his daily classroom duties. He has created an amazing musical instrument department that has grown every year under his leadership. Mr. Stevens has created a wonderful learning environment that allows students to take risks, learn, and grow under his guidance. Mr. Stevens prides himself on developing students to be lifelong learners and excel inside and outside the classroom walls. I cannot think of a more deserving teacher to be named as South Hunterdon's Educator of the Year.
something else that's very nice about the program, this is only their first stop along the way of the tour. So in May, they will also all be going, we have a countywide luncheon for all of our educators and teachers of the year. So they will be able to participate in that and get to meet folks from other districts, and it'll hopefully be a nice day. So that's coming as well.
All right, approval of the minutes. Need a motion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Okay, reports.
All right, so we have several reports this evening that I'm going to go through. I'm going to start off first with each and every year we are required to do what's called a HIB, or Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying self-assessment. So the data that you're going to see in front of you is something for last school year, for the 2021 school year. And we have safety teams, school climate teams at each one of our school buildings. And one of their tasks throughout the year is to take this document and do a self-assessment based on criteria that the state of New Jersey gives to get an idea of where we are as far as our harassment intimidation programming. You know, there are procedures that we need to follow in reference to if we do have a case of HIB, a calendar for investigations, and all those different things. So this is the result of those self-assessments that each one of the buildings did for the last school year. So there is a scoring criteria that you'll see. So the key assessment, the self-assessment key up here, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then you'll see there are different areas, different elements. So the first one basically looks at the overall programming that takes place from the school side, within the school side, and school-wide conditions as well, self-identified patterns. So looking at HIB cases to see whether or not there are any specific patterns along the way. So this kind of breaks down. You can see there's 3 separate categories: high school, middle school, West Amwell, and LPS. Training, so we are required to do training on an annual basis with all of our school employees, and as well as some of our other volunteers, coaches, folks that will be working within the district. It's important that we go over the HIB law and the specifics of the HIB law. So you can see in that core element 2, that's where that falls. Then our staff instruction and programming, so the type of programming we're doing. Suicide prevention is a big piece of this as well. There's a requirement for training on an annual basis. How we're providing HIB training as well as to our students, so they're understanding what the law is all about. Our school safety teams, which I mentioned before, if you look at letter D, providing professional development. So sometimes folks on our school safety teams or our anti-bullying specialists, which we have in each building, will go out for professional development opportunities. And then making sure our school leaders, so our administrative staff, is fully aware of what the law is all about, the timelines that we need to follow, and procedures that we need to follow. Curriculum and instruction, so making sure we have age-appropriate curriculum. We do also celebrate on this is something we should be doing every week of the year, but the state of New Jersey specifically recognizes a week in October, the first week in October, as the week of respect. So there's a lot of different activities that take place around respect for that particular week. And then HIB personnel, so as I mentioned before, we are required to appoint an anti-bullying specialist at each of one of our schools. We're also required to have an anti-bullying coordinator, which is myself, for the district that oversees the specialist. I meet with the specialist throughout the year to talk about scenarios, investigations, common trends, if there's any changes in the law, when we meet and kind of take a look at that information. And then there's reporting procedures. So when we get into 6, and what you'll see is, you may notice, well, why isn't there scores for West Amwell and LPS? That's because last year, we didn't have any HIBs specifically for those 2 buildings. We did have HIBs for the high school. So the scoring kind of takes a little bit of a turn, and I'll explain that on the next slide. For this element, for number 6, for this part, we're only scoring the high school and the middle school since they actually had cases. And that's basically just saying that we follow the procedures. So there's a timeline of 10 days when we have to do an investigation, and the report eventually comes to the superintendent and then eventually goes to the Board of Education for approval. And then you can see for element 6 for West Amwell and LPS, It's a little different since they didn't have cases. So basically, we're ensuring that the staff are implementing procedures. There's a form that's available. There's information that's available on the website about the HIB process, and that we're looking at positive school climate and behaviors. Even though there wasn't any HIBs, that's something we can still take a look at. And then from the investigation side, again, the middle school, high school here, because they had some cases, we need to notify parents, obviously offenders, and victims in cases, complete, as I said before, within 10 days. There's a written report that's submitted with the findings, and then the results are submitted to me, and then eventually submitted to the Board of Education, although no personal identifiable information is provided to the Board of Education, just an overview of the incident. And then you can see for West Amwell and LPS, a little different because obviously they didn't have cases, but again, just making sure that there is a process in place, staff is familiar with the process and what it is, where they go, how they report if they do see anything. And then core element 8 is just ensuring that information is available on the website, so the HIB has to be one click away. So if you look on our home district pages, you'll see one of the quick links is for harassment, intimidation, and bullying, so it can't be buried within the website. And then each and every year we are required to post our self-assessment results that we get from the Department of Education in a report that kind of shows, and you can look at, if you go on our website, you'll see the last 4 or 5 years that are all available. So you'll see where our scores are for this particular year, 2021, keeping in mind it was last school year, not this school year, and what the total possible points are. But if you look at the state of New Jersey, they're looking at a score of 50 to be your target. So obviously we're above the score of 50. We can always improve, and we look at these, and for our bullying specialists, when I meet with them before the end of the year, we'll take a look at these self-assessments and kind of target different areas for next year that maybe we want to focus on as far as our programming goes. Any questions about the HIB self-assessment? All right, and then that leads us into, it's the time of the year where we have to do first quarter of the violence and vandalism report. So this is only for data now for this school year from September to December. So anything that happened from January on is not counted in this report. I will do a report again for the board in October of next school year, and that will be a culmination of the entire 2021-2022 school year. So just something to keep in mind, if we have an incident that involves violence, vandalism, substance abuse, a weapon, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, there's specific forms from the state of New Jersey that we have to complete and we have to submit to the state of New Jersey. So this is an example of what's called an SSDS form, a Student Safety Data System Reporting Form. And there's different checkoffs depending upon what the incident is for us to complete. And then this is for the harassment, intimidation, and bullying side of things. So if we do have a HIB case, we do need to report this information to the state of New Jersey, and it's documented as far as the school year goes. So if you want to look at for this year right now of where we are, you'll see the offenses. Now, the one that may jump off the page view for middle school, high school under substance abuse is 8. All of them involve vaping. So that is something that, obviously we're working on. One little secret that if you're not aware, we did install vaping monitors in our building. So that is something that's new for us this year. So obviously that's going to probably pick up things that maybe in the past we would not see. Vandalism, you can see kind of the breakdown there. Violence can be anything from a threat, a physical altercation. We did have one weapons offense earlier in the school year, and you can see the breakdown right now of the amount of HIBs that we had per school and how many were actually confirmed to be an actual HIB based on the law and the criteria that our HIB specialists utilize to determine that. And then this is a breakdown for the 4 years, just to kind of some comparisons to see where we were, keeping in mind, the end of 2020, and then last year we were dealing with COVID and modified schedules and things along those lines, and kind of where we are now. And then from a programming side, it's important that we're always putting things in place to hopefully have these numbers be zero, right? That's what we all want. So we spent a lot of time really in the last 2 years focusing on culturally responsive teaching. We've done a ton of work in SEL, even way before I got here, and that's been an ongoing theme. We're fortunate that we have a strong counseling system across the board, starting at elementary all the way up through the middle school and the high school. We made some changes to that programming last year, and I definitely think we're reaping the benefits. Student assistance counselor, anti-bullying specialist. If you're not aware, we really are looking at, and we've implemented starting last year, we're taking an approach, what we're calling restorative practices with student discipline. And what that means is that just giving a student a consequence doesn't necessarily change the behavior. So a detention, a suspension, whatever it may be, it's really, really important. The goal of any disciplinary that we put out to a student is to hopefully change the behavior so it doesn't happen again. And I am a firm believer that restorative is a really important process. And what I mean by that is there has to be some type of educational component for the student to really hopefully understand the full ramifications of the behavior. And we've gotten very, very creative in different ways that we've done that. And I think we've seen success from that, and we're building off of that. So the days of just assigning a detention are kind of a thing of the past. There has to be some type of educational component that goes along with that, whether the student's going to work individually with a staff member, whether the student's going to work on some type of assignment and report out on it. That's a really important part, and we're looking to build upon that moving forward. We introduced earlier in the year Hunterdon Safe Schools app, and I will say that is something that has been used by our students. It's an anonymous reporting app that if a student reports something that they have a concern about, we get instantaneous notification, meaning myself, our principals. It's more for middle and high school, so Mrs. McKnight and I will get notification, and then depending upon what it is, we can address the situation. You've heard about Rutgers Behavioral Health Clinician coming soon. We're waiting patiently. We're hoping to have someone on board during the month of April, before the end of April. We know that mental health is a huge challenge right now with our students. It's a challenge across, really the country, especially in New Jersey. So we're looking to improve our resources. I mentioned about the Week of Respect, which is the first week in October, and then there's also what's called a Violence and Vandalism Awareness Week, which is the third week in October. Both are sponsored by the New Jersey Department of Education. So the expectation is that they're looking for specific activities that are taking place within the schools. But as I said before, this is something that really should be happening all year long, not just 1 week. Any questions about the Violence and Vandalism report from the board?
Just a quick question. So are you and Ms. McKnight are the only ones who get notified from the reporting on the Safe Act?
Excuse me, Mr. Miller as well.
Okay.
He's vice principal, yep.
So this is, you do this report twice a year?
Correct.
To the board? Has it been done differently in the past, or is it make sense to see these numbers more frequently throughout the year to identify potential trends throughout the year instead of waiting until October to see what's going on between January and the end of the school year, looking at that later in the year? Does it make sense to think about looking at it differently?
We do that internally all the time. We're required by law to report it twice out to the public, but as far as from the administrative side, we're looking at that every time we have something that happens and really taking a look. And that's also part of, I mentioned before, each school has what's called a climate team. So they're looking at HIBs, any incidents of discipline, things along those lines to say, do we have common trends that are across? And if they are, do we have programming that's identifying those trends? All right. So for this, we actually need to do, before I do my superintendent report, we need to do a public comment just on the HIB and the violence and vandalism report. And then when we're done, we'll close public comment. I'll do my superintendent update. Then we'll do another open public comment, and that could be on anything.
Yep. All right. We're going to open public comment. Again, it's just strictly on that report. No other statements or questions. It's got to be about that report. We have procedures and requirements that include standards of conduct and need to be followed by members of the public during public comments. If a member of the public becomes disruptive during a public meeting, including during any public period for public comment, a member of the board charged with running a public meeting shall warn a disruptive member of the public that continued disruption may result in being prevented from speaking during a public meeting or removed from the public meeting. Disruptive conduct includes sustained inappropriate behaviors such as, but not necessarily limited to, shouting, interruption, use of profanity, or common scenes of abusive, offensive, or defamatory. Members of the public are invited to address the board on the matter of the HIB and Vandalism Advisory Report only. Just a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You're asked to state your name and municipality. Public comment is now open. If anybody would like to make a comment on that presentation. Okay, all right, now we will close it. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Before we start with my report, and I have several items I need to touch base on, there is something I just want to acknowledge and read, for the public, not only here in person, but at home. Before I start my superintendent update, I want to reinforce how important it is that all of our students feel heard, have a positive experience while attending our schools, and that as a district, we do the best we possibly can to meet each and every student's individual needs. Upon reflection, I think we can do a better job communicating when laws have changed and impact district policy. We also need to make sure that all parents are aware of the process they can follow if they have a child who does not feel comfortable in a specific situation and may need the support of the district with possible accommodations. This is something the board and I will be working on in the coming months and will eventually share with the community. So I think it's important just to acknowledge that based on some things that have been out on social media and in the communities. We have some work to do, and we are ready to do that work moving forward. All right, for my update, several different things to talk about. First of all, some good news. We just received a couple weeks ago our state aid numbers for the budget, and I'm happy to report that we did see an increase, $52,373. So you can see what our state aid was for the 2021 and 22 school year, and then what it will be for next school year. So that made Andrew very happy when we got that number because he worries about that. So it was a good day for him. So I just want to provide two COVID updates. First, just keep in mind and remember that if it's been more than 5 months since your child received all the required doses, however, they have not been boosted, they are not considered, according to the New Jersey Department of Health, as up to date with their vaccinations. So that is something our nurses are tracking. And then if we do have a situation where we have to quarantine close contacts, obviously if they're not up to date and boosted, then they would need to be quarantined. So just please keep that in mind. The other thing is we've really been trying to improve upon notification of vaccination. And I realize the Aspen system is not the most user-friendly in the world. So if you've noticed in my COVID notifications that have gone out over the last 2 weeks, we've set up a new system where basically we're just asking you to simply email a picture of your child's vaccination card to your school nurse, and you see their contact information on the slide, and then they'll take care of getting into Aspen. Because I know talking with some parents, the Aspen piece was multiple steps, and I think some folks gave up on that. And we want to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information possible, because that truly does save time when we're contact tracing. So again, if you haven't done that, please try to do that as soon as possible. So an update on preschool. So you hopefully heard me talk about this in the past, but we have decided that we will be expanding to 3 preschool sections for the 2022-2023 school year. We currently only have 2 at the Lambertville School. There will be a total of 45 open seats. Keep in mind, we're talking about free preschool, so if you're not aware, we received a grant from the state of New Jersey Department of Education back in November, and we'll be expanding our preschool over the next several years to hopefully have free preschool for all students living in our community. All 3 classes will be housed at LPS next year, and the reason for that is we looked at possibly holding one at West Anwell, but you need a preschool playground in order to hold a preschool program. And we don't have a preschool program at West Anwell. So, and with what's going on with the referendum, it wouldn't make sense to put money into that for 1 year. And then we also, and this is kind of hot off the press, and we'll acknowledge this individual at a future board meeting, but we just found out we have a retirement in our preschool program. So that means 2 of the 3 individuals next year will be new to preschool. So it makes complete educational sense to allow those folks to work with the individual who has been doing preschool and hopefully be able to collaborate and build the program together rather than at two separate locations in isolation. We currently, as of today, have 34 students enrolled in our preschool program, and we have a total of 45 seats. So we still have some seats that are open. Our plan is to partner with local preschool programs. So we've already had the conversation with some local preschool programs in the area for the 23-24 school year to open up additional preschool sections. So we're not going to have the room. Eventually, the goal would be to get to 5 to 6 preschool sections, right? We don't necessarily have the room for that, but we can partner with places within our community if they're willing to partner with us, and we have funding to be able to do that. So the goal would be by not this fall, the next fall, because they'll be ready. Some of the places that we spoke to would like a year to kind of get themselves ready for this. We're going to expand out, and hopefully, like I said, we'll have 5 or 6 preschool classrooms, both between in the district and out of the district. So that's really exciting for our community. And just a public service announcement, if you know of anyone or you have anyone who'd be interested in free preschool and have not heard about this, we've been trying to get the word out because obviously some parents, if it's their first child in the district, they're not getting our district communications. So we've been putting it on Facebook. I actually was doing a substitute interview the other day and ran across someone who is a parent in the district for preschool at a local preschool, not in our program, and had no idea. So it was great to be able to talk to that individual, and they're very much interested. So if you know of anyone, please have them reach out to Mr. Hewitt or Christina Castro, our bilingual secretary, for more information. And hopefully we'll be able to fill all 45 of those slots for next year, which is really, really exciting. All right, so safety and security, next step. So if you were here at our last meeting, we did a pretty extensive safety and security review. So we're going to take some steps forward tonight on our agenda. There'll be a portion of the agenda where there's 2 resolutions that the Board of Education are going to vote on this evening. The first resolution is to continue with the existing program that we have right now, which is our Class 3 Special Law Enforcement Officer program. And resolution number 2 will be to go in a new direction with a campus safety officer program. So the board will look at both of these resolutions, and I'll talk a little bit more about them as we get closer to the resolutions and kind of the thought process of why both are on the agenda. I also want to share something that came out loud and clear from our review in the community as parents universally had no idea what to do if they got an emergency notification from the district that there was an emergency at their child's school. So a couple weeks ago, I sent out a document. It's also posted on our website. I've also asked our principals when they share, now that we're required each month to notify parents at the end of the school day when we have a safety drill, I've asked them to include it in that correspondence as well, just to continually remind parents that there's 4 or 5 things you should be thinking about if there is ever an emergency. And I know this is hard to think about, but one of them is not to come to school, right? So if there's a notification, what we don't want to have is parents just getting in their car and driving to the school building, because that would be a difficult situation. So if you hadn't had a chance, take a look at that document. The next time a safety email goes out from the principal about a drill that was happening, and then, like I said, it's also under the parent section of the website if you look down at one of the links. And then some of the other things we're working on is just the implementation of some other recommendations. So we talked about pin pads at LPS. It's a completely keyed building, so that can be problematic. Playground areas on both sides, preschool and the regular playground area. So we already had a vendor come out and kind of take a look at the building, take a look at some possible solutions, take a look at some solutions that we could even use after the renovation, so we can preserve them and then use them again after the renovation. Looking at cameras, this summer all buses will be equipped with cameras. Right now we really only have one that has cameras, so we're going to be completing the rest of the fleet, and then looking at the recommendations from the Department of Ed as well as implementing them. So we are moving forward based on some of the recommendations, and we'll continue to do that throughout the remainder of this school year and then over the summer for next year. All right, so referendum. I haven't said much about the referendum, but I want to provide an update and share some things with you as far as where we are in the process. So since January, since returning from winter break, we've been focusing on designing the new 5-8 school building. And our goal is to complete that process by hopefully the beginning of July of this year, and then get it to the Department of Education for a review, which usually takes about 3 months. And that process will be between August and October. Go out to bid in November and begin construction in January 2023, and with a completion date of July of 2024. So some of the conversations that I've been having lately with some folks that are in the industry is that the way pricing is right now, we'd be much more beneficial to stretch out the project. Instead of going out for bid and saying we want it done in maybe 13 to 14 months, you're better off saying we'll give you 16 months. And we'll probably get better pricing, because right now the trend in the industry is compact schedules scare contractors because of supplies, so they have a tendency to bid higher because of that. So we kind of sped up the process a little bit. We weren't planning on going out to bid till probably around January. Based on some research that we've done, we decided to push up that so we can get out to bid earlier in the year and get started and give ourselves still leeway, hopefully a month or so for punch list and different things along those lines. I want to show a rendering of the 5-8 building. So this gives you a kind of a 3D idea of what it looks like. We're still working on colors and the exterior. Basically what you'll see is this is very different from what I originally showed the community. And the reason why is we've had a lot of planning meetings with our staff and gotten a ton of input from our staff who are in the trenches with this. And based on their ideas, we've changed the design. In the original design, the front entrance to the building was over here. Now the front entrance is actually over here, and it's completely moved. So this is kind of the front office area of the building. This is the library, which is kind of media center, the hub of the building. And then we have our classroom space in the back, which is 2-story. And then we have more of our music, STEAM space, science room area, and then our gym area and kitchen area, cafeteria. And I'm going to show you some more details. So we are looking at a green roof. So we're looking at this portion of the building to have a green roof. The advantage of that, first of all, now when you build new, really the DEP requires it. You have to have either solar or a green roof. Right now, solar is not the greatest as far as what we get back in return with pricing, so we've been leaning more towards a green roof. The other thing is it helps tremendously with drainage, and that's a big deal right now. The days of when you used to have the big drainage basin in front of a building, you can't have that anymore. You need to have smaller ones around the peripheral of the campus, so having a green roof is going to help minimize the amount that we would need. So that's something that's pretty exciting. So when we talk about floor plan, and I know that's tough to see, so I'm going to drill in a little bit to kind of show you a little bit more of kind of where we landed, which I think is pretty exciting. So we'll start out over more towards the front entrance of the building. So I mentioned before, what you'll see, this is the area, the front entrance. There's a secured vestibule, very similar to what we have right here out in front of the high school with the double set of doors. As you come in, you'll be able to go into the main office area, principal's office, conference room, and then we have 3 offices. 2 will be for counselors, and then the other probably will be for another administrator, supervisor, or someone else who's in the district. On the left-hand side, it's called ECC. You are required now by statute to have what's called an emergency command center for safety and security. So that is this area here. That's where our fire system would go. That's where all the different things, our other monitoring systems that we have would be in that location. As you do come in here, you'll notice this is going to be a kind of like a higher ceiling, which will be really nice aesthetically. We have a full-size gym with locker rooms. So we have locker rooms on both sides. We have storage area in between. We have a cafeteria, kitchen area. There'll actually be another door so you can go in and out. We're working on the traffic flow of that. Gym's going to be exciting. I know we're looking at a full climbing wall along this wall as a possibility for Project Adventure classes. As you look down here, you'll see we have single-use bathrooms in the corner here. As we move down, bless you, we're going to have a really unique media center with a lot of different things going on. It will be very 21st century. quiet spaces, but also interactive spaces where teachers can bring students in, kind of collaborative, called huddle spaces where students can collaborate, which will be really neat. SGI, small group instruction, so that could be for special education, could be for ESL. 2 full-size science rooms, which are very large in size, which are going to create a lot of opportunities for our students. A STEAM room, so this is something that's really cool and creative. It's going to be a combination of STEM and art that we'll be utilizing that space for. It's a really big space, so we're going to be able to do a lot of really neat and cool things. Music and choir, so 2 music spaces and then storage across the hall. In theory, what will happen is kids will get dropped off on the bus. This is kind of where they'll enter the building, and then they'll make their way down to more of the instructional space, which is down here. And as we come in, again, we have another small group instruction. We have a special education program room, so a self-contained special education program room. Then we have classrooms, obviously. And then as you look down towards the end, we have additional small group space. So one thing we're lacking significantly right now is small group instruction space. So you'll notice in here we have a lot of it, probably triple of what we have now, which is great. And then on the lower level, you'll see kind of similar design with the classroom spaces. And then again, small group instruction with a lot of storage, closets. So we're still fine-tuning this. This kind of gives you an idea of where things are planned out. So we literally, our next step is on April 6th and 7th. We have our teachers coming together for 2 full days with our architects, and we're literally going to design the interior of each room. So where's furniture going to go? We're looking at total flexible furniture, right? Things, not the old one-piece student desk, things that can be moved down, reconfigured, 2, 4, 6, 8 people at one spot. Where's the front of the classroom going to go? Where's the projector going to go? Where's the teacher workstation going to go? All those different things are going to be the next round of planning. And then after that, we're going to basically do an overlay of our technology infrastructure. So in other words, our IDF rooms, all our cabling runs, projectors, all those different pieces, cameras, security cameras, all that will kind of be the last piece of it. Like I said, we're still planning on exterior colors. We haven't decided on that, although we are taking, if you look at the one document that I showed you, we're looking at a little bit more of a stucco stone approach on the, stone on the bottom, stucco on the top, rather than your traditional red brick, for a variety of different reasons. You have a tendency sometimes to have issues with red brick, but it's really going to be neat. The other nice thing is we are planning on and designing 2 outdoor learning spaces. So right here, so this space here, which will be in front of the media center, and then if you noticed, if I go back to, let's see, this plan, you're going to notice that the science rooms and the STEAM rooms have exterior doors on them. That's because we're going to have an outdoor learning space all along this area. So a lot of different things, paved area, a lot of different things, creative things. The green team, actually, right? I just was sharing with Sean and the green team, Mrs. Gardner, this plan, and I think they're going to come back to us with some ideas as well. We haven't gotten to that point where we're designing those specific outside spaces, but really, really exciting. A lot of progress has been made over the last couple months as we move forward with the design of this. So, and the teachers have been awesome. Thank you for all the time and effort they've put in along the way, and thinking of all the things that we're not thinking of, because they're in the trenches each and every day. For the LPS renovation, so we will start a little bit pushed back. We will just start the design of that in May, and the goal will be to complete the design by the end of September. We'll get it to the Department of Education for an October to January review. Hopefully get out to bid in February, and we will look to do construction starting in June 2023 with a end date, completion date of June 2024. So we're looking at 12 full months for construction on the Lambertville School. So our school calendar for next year is absolutely impacted by this, because the goal will be to try to turn over the Lambertville School as early as in June as possible to the contractor to give them a full year working through that building. We want to make sure we have at least a month or so, one, that we can move back in, 2, that we can deal with punch list items, things that we need to have corrected. If you've ever done construction, you know how that goes. So we're really looking to maximize as much time as we can with construction. That means that, and this is important, that the plan would be that we would use the Jesus School not for next school year, but for the following school year. So for the 23-24 school year, we would be utilizing the Jesus School while LPS was being fully renovated. So that leads into my district calendar. And if you didn't see it on the board agenda, a couple things I want to share because it's a little unique compared to years past. First of all, one thing you'll notice is that we are starting school for students on Monday, August 29th. So we are starting earlier than we have in the past. Again, the reason why is we're trying to maximize to get out of school as early as we possibly can for construction. You'll also notice along the way that typically we would have several full-day in-service days for staff and no school for kids. We are not going to do that next year during the school year. We are going to make them half-day for students and then half-day professional development for staff. Again, that saves us days of students. We're required to go 180 days for students, so we're trying to maximize that amount of time. So right now, we are getting out of school, if all goes well, on Wednesday, June 7th. And then the hope would be, at the latest, that we could turn that building over to the contractor on Monday, June 12th. We're going to start to get, we have to get everything out, right? That's part of the process. We can't hand that building over with anything in it. So we're going to have to get stuff out and store it. So we're going to need time even before the 7th to start working on that, and then make sure those last couple days through that weekend that we get that building cleared out and we can turn it over to the contractor. You'll notice that right here, we do have some snow days built into the calendar, not as many as we've traditionally done in the past, but also keep in mind, there's a bill that was just passed by the Senate, it's now at the Assembly, to allow us to use virtual days for snow days next year. Now, I get when we were down this road before, there's nothing better than a traditional snow day where kids can go out and play and they don't have to worry about school. And I'm all for that. But we may have to balance that a little bit next year, and we may have to utilize those depending upon if we get in a situation to try to preserve those days at the end of the year, so we can try to get out as early as we possibly can to allow us to turn over that building. So this is the calendar that I'm bringing before the board tonight to hopefully vote on and then get out to parents tomorrow. So I know vacations and all kinds of different things. The other thing that was brought up, we were having a discussion earlier today, challenges with childcare. We're getting out earlier than we normally did. We're starting earlier than we are, so like aftercare. So know that I've been reaching out. I've had conversations with Lisa at Lambertville Academy, reaching out to the Y, letting them know they've seen this draft, so they know that we're starting early, so they're already working on making sure that they have staffing available for the week of the 29th. And then we've also had discussions about the summer months and kind of what does that look like, because it's a little bit sooner than parents are used to, so child care issues. I think we're going to even have some conversations within district about maybe how we could support that. So we have time, obviously, to worry about that over a year. But at least for the fall in August, hopefully all of our area folks will be on board. So if we start school on the 29th, if parents need, aftercare programs, they'll be available earlier than they normally have been. So that is our school calendar. And then the last thing that I'll share, just an update on costs. So if you're not aware, you probably, have been following along. Unfortunately, we have not sold the bonds yet for the referendum due to the fact that we did have an election contest that was filed by a private citizen group. Now, there's 3 components to that election contest. One of them was dismissed permanently by a judge on March 2nd, and I've actually attached in there the dismissal document. The reality is that if we had sold the bonds back in January, we were looking at a rate of about 2.25%. Since we weren't able to sell the bonds, and we're not able to until this election contest is over, we're estimating that the rate could be closer to about 3.5%. Unfortunately, that would be an extra $2 million over the course of 30 years. So if we were to settle today, you're probably looking at around 3%. If we don't settle, I'm hoping that the election contest will be done by the end of April, beginning of May. If we sold bonds in June, as you know, the market is volatile right now. Now, it's not as volatile as mortgage rates, but it is something that Andrew and I have been reaching out and meeting with our bond counsel to get updates periodically. So, I mean, the bottom line is, unfortunately, as taxpayers, you know, between the legal fees and then obviously the increase in interest rates, there is an impact there. So, you know, that's one of the downsides of where we are. I'm hoping that you're excited by what you saw as far as the different things. And at some point, we'll start to share the programming that we've been working on, which is really, really exciting. Some things that we have, kids are going to have access to, and the amount of instructional time in areas that they have now compared to what they will, it's going to be awesome. A lot of really neat, self-paced, really cool programs that we're looking at to implement for the 5-8 building. So at this point, I will turn it over to the board first before we open it back up for public comment. Is there any questions on anything I presented in my superintendent update?
Not a question, but just want to, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Oh, okay. So Tony, I wanted to ask a question back to the Aspen report for the vaccination. At one point, when we looked at the percentage of our schools that were vaccinated, our numbers were lower than we expected, and so I'm grateful that you created a system that's a little bit more user friendly. Is there a way to report back on what our percentages are after that improved reporting mechanism?
There is. So I have not looked at it lately, but I can pull a report tomorrow from Aspen to see, and with our nurses to see where our percentages look like compared to where they were back in probably February, January.
Great. Thank you.
Yep. Jim?
Yeah, so I do want to reference your second bullet point here. Just make sure that everybody understands the plan that the voters passed in November was for $33 million. And no matter what happens with this when the election contest is done, we will have $33 million to spend. The $2 million is not coming to us, it is interest rates, right? I mean, it is interest. That is money that's going to the bank because this has been, held up for a few months. So just want to make sure that everyone understands we're not making any more money out of this. We have what we have, and that's what we're going to use. So this is all cost that is being unexpectedly added.
All right, any others from the board? All right, sounds good. Moving on to public comment. We'll now open public comment. Remember the portion I read about conduct, behavior. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for the maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your full name and municipality. Public comment is now open. Anybody like to make a comment? Come on up. Yes, to the podium, please. Just state your.
Hi, my name is Melissa Gordon. My children attend West Amwell School. I have 2 daughters, Callie, she's in 6th grade, and Sophia's in 3rd grade. Recently, we received an email regarding the 6th grade camping trip. There was an email sent out explaining that the cabins will be separated based on the gender by which students identify. As of now, restrooms and etc. are separated based on biological sex rather than gender. So this would actually be introducing a completely new concept altogether. Males and females have different biological and physiological differences, and this is why this idea should be revisited. My daughter, who is 11 and in the 6th grade, she hasn't quite hit puberty yet, and she's just beginning to develop, and she specifically told me that she feels very uncomfortable having a boy stay in the same cabin as her. Although the transgender children feel uncomfortable, I feel that the comfort of all the students should be considered. Also, this would be setting a precedent for future policies which could negatively affect the children in many ways. One of which is safety. I absolutely do not feel that the transgender students are a threat whatsoever. I do feel that there are people who will take advantage of this and see it as an opportunity. I do realize that many people see the possibility of this happening here as very slim, but like I mentioned before, this would be setting a precedent for future policies, which would mean that eventually it would happen all over the country. And unfortunately, not all children around the country are as fortunate as our kids to go to the school district. Our kids are very protected, and we're very lucky to be sending our children here. This could also affect boys and girls' activities in sports. For example, if a transgender boy wishes to join the girls' sports team, he has had the advantage of years of puberty and the hormones that go along with it. I can't imagine what the parents must be going through seeing their child struggle with this, but the idea of sharing cabins should be revisited, and the comfort of all the students should be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Come on up.
My name is Susan Ravello, and I live in Lambertville. And I've been a mental health clinician and educator for about 35 years. And I'm here because I want to make a few remarks about safety, fear, and human nature. I want to thank Superintendent Suoso for developing a clear and very informative district policy to keep our transgender students safe. And I know that there has been a lot of emphasis on safety, as we all know, in the recent past. And I want all of our children to be safe, including our transgender students. I want them to be safe from violence, from sexual assault, from bullying, from verbal abuse, from insensitive comments, from being maligned, and from misunderstanding. So for ease of language, I'm going to just use the word trans, referring to transgender and non-binary kids. And I want to share with you why I'm concerned about the physical and emotional safety of trans kids by reading some public comments that I have seen. Quote, "Here's an idea. Put all these confused kids in one effing cabin and stop making everyone else feel uncomfortable," unquote. Quote, "A boy identifying as a girl is not sleeping in my daughter's cabin, end of story," unquote. Quote, "These transgenders are a pain in the ass, and then some," unquote. Quote, "These people may feel more comfortable being in a cabin with those they feel they identify with, but this is just opening the door for sexual assault. A school should especially be making safety a priority over anything else." My question is, safety for whom? We are talking about kids here. These comments are about our kids. And what about safety for all kids? So trans kids are over 4 times more likely than non-trans kids to be the recipients of violence, sexual assault, abuse, and bullying. Over half of all trans youth have considered suicide because of the way they are considered and the vitriolic speech and behavior against them. And this brings me to fear and human nature. It's normal for human beings to fear that which is unfamiliar and unknown to them. Out of that fear of what we don't understand, we project misconceptions and prejudices. It becomes easy to vilify, feel unduly threatened, and see the other as abnormal. It's not that a lot of times what is not customary is seen as abnormal, and this happens out of ignorance and misinformation. Being trans, like left-handedness, is a naturally occurring phenomenon in a certain percentage of the population. It is not inherited, and it is not caused by the family environment, and it is not catching. It is not able to be caught. Any family has the possibility of having a trans child. Any family.
Ma'am, your time is up. 3 minutes.
Let's
You
keep
have to follow
all of
the
our
rules
kids
here.
safe.
Rules are rules. If you want the board to respect your opinion, you gotta follow the rules.
Oh, that's a shame.
There's another public comment that you can continue at the end. There's another public comment that you can continue at the end.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anybody else like to make a statement?
I'm Shara Durkee from Lambertville, and I wasn't planning to speak on the transgender things that have come up, and what Susan said was better than anything I ever could have said. And I would just like to say I have no reservations whatsoever. I have a high school athlete. If there are trans kids who would like to be on her teams, please be on her teams. South Sports, anybody who wants to be there should be there. And also, we can't bully or legislate people away. And just like Susan said, trans people are everywhere. We should support them. What I did want to talk about is, I know that you're voting on the what we're going to do in terms of safety and what kinds of officers we are going to have. And you have 2 options, and I wish you had 3, because I think you should vote for other. Because I understand that this is a compromise that you worked on. There are good things about it. There are also things that are kind of not good at all about it. And I've thought about it so much, and I'm thinking other. I'm not sure if you ever considered non-armed options. It doesn't feel like that was something that was being considered, but you know, Hopewell Valley's 15 minutes from here. You can be to the high school and the middle school in 15 minutes. It's a bigger district than we are. It's an excellent district. I know people who have left this district to go there. I prefer South, but people go there for the schools. I've never heard of people pulling their kids out of there or homeschooling their kids because they do not have armed security. And Tony, you know this because you spent your career there. Kevin, I think you know this because you were a police officer in that community. They're excellent schools. They're responsible parents. They care about their kids. The superintendent, the last one and the one now, dedicated, care about the students, don't want armed officers in those schools or armed guards. The Board of Education doesn't want guns in the schools with their kids. And I hope that moving forward, whatever you choose tonight, because I know you're not all going to vote no on both, whatever you choose tonight is what we will have for the year. But I hope that you will continue to consider that there are other options that are responsible, that are acceptable, that are not unusual, and that keep our kids safe. And maybe next year you can look into that and hopefully go forward with that option. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben West. I live in Lambertville. It's not up for debate. There's nothing wrong with being trans. And I'll say it again for the people in the back. There's nothing wrong with being trans. Trans people are precious. Trans lives matter. And I know there's people in this room and within the sound of my voice who don't agree with that. Tough. No one's asking your permission. This is the law, this is the policy in this school district. That's it. You're all about law and order and you want to have cops in the schools? Well, comply. It's not a debate. And what happens when we permit the types of speech that happened the other day, that Susan just read, is that vulnerable kids know that they're not going to be protected in this community. And kids who might have been brought up to think it's okay to think that way and to speak that way and to treat people that way, they know they can get away with it in this community. Now, what Susan didn't say is that the comments that she read weren't just made by anybody. They were made by close family members of the president of this school board and another elected member of this school board. Kevin Kowaleski, Diana Purcell, there's no credibility that you're going to protect these kids. There's none, and you should both resign. You should step down, and you should let someone take leadership who's going to protect all of our kids and who's going to comply with the law. No one's asking for your permission. This is how it is. We need people, we need leadership in this community that's going to set the right example. What's it going to take? The reason that trans kids have a higher rate of suicide, higher rates of anxiety, higher rates of depression is not because there's anything wrong with them. It's because there's something wrong with you. And when someone tells you who you are in this life, who they are, shows you who they are, I've learned, you got to believe them. And we've seen who they are. Step down.
Hello, my name is Andrea Little. I am from West Amwell Township. I want to say thank you from the last board meeting. I thought it was really effective that you gave the study of from the students of all the different districts, the teachers from the different districts, and families of different districts talking about the Class 3 officers. And you used the term loud and clear, and students should be heard, and they were. They really feel very safe having Class 3 officers within the district. I like that you came up with compromises and trying to make things work, but you have something that's really working here. You've really put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's proving to be very successful. There's a lot of respect here. Talking to high school students, even when you had like that lockdown and different things like that, they feel more comfortable as students to be here. And the teachers said the same thing. So I was really, really pleased to hear that survey from all different community members. So thank you very much. I'm glad that's up for vote, and maybe we can move on. Especially because safety is super important. And I know with the dispensary opening in Lambertville, potentially, these are things that we have to be thinking about. And I just wanted to follow up, and I'm hoping that you'll come to this conversation. You had said at the last board meeting that you were going to talk to the town about closing down publicly during school hours, the park and the space. So I hope that you're making some headway there, especially since all students will ultimately be down there for the younger ages. And the other thing is, when we talk about safety, I'd like to also know when we'll get to see some type of traffic study for Lambertville Rocktown Road and Mount Airy Road, because we're going to have different traffic patterns going on with 2 different buildings and 2 different bus routes, you know, because you're going to have new buses for the other middle school. So I'd really like to understand that, since it's a very well-traveled area. And hopefully, as you get closer to your planning, we can start hearing about that. I'm glad you're giving a lot of time for the building of the school, because it takes a while to get septic designs and things like that approved. So again, public safety and safety of our environment. And one last thing, on the schedule for next year, with high school, kids are starting sports and band early, so it doesn't really affect them so much. But it was a little bit disservicing to see 3 half days for in school, like half day for in staff service and school, because the kids are going to lose time in school, and that really matters a lot for any kids that are going to be having like AP testing or different things like that, or just education. And we all know that we're behind in education, as well as, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Anyone else like to make a statement?
Jessica Hardigan, West Amwell resident. I was not planning on speaking, but when I look at our Class 3 officers, I do not look at them as guns. I don't look at them as people carrying weapons. What I do see, however, is people directing traffic, people helping students. I mean, Officer Bartzak just came to our book fair, and he was there to make people feel safe. No one looked at him as a man holding a weapon. And the other day when it was super foggy, you literally couldn't see like 100 feet in front of your car. And we pulled up, there's flares, there's lights from West Amwell Police Department and the Class 3. Removing that removes so much more than just having a police officer. We rely on him heavily for other things other than safety. I mean, directing traffic in and out of the school, if we don't have the police car, we lose that. And there were other issues that they brought up during the safety meeting at LPS. Christina Castro had mentioned several times that they had asked Officer Jerry when he was down there to go out and sort of investigate people who were lurking around the playground or sitting in their cars watching the children. And what happens if you have a man not in uniform? I mean, if an officer approaches me in uniform, I'm probably going to take them more seriously than a plainclothes officer, because how do I know who they are? I mean, they have district shirts on, but I think you can take someone a little more seriously if they have their car, they have their uniform on. And I know that a lot of people think that just makes me feel safe because it's a deterrent, but it's a deterrent that works. And then the other thing I would like to speak about is I respect trans people. I think anyone who anyone who is who they are and does it. I think that attacking our board members doesn't make it any better, especially where family members made comments, not our board members. And that's all.
Hi, Suzanne Zambella, West Amwell Township. I just want to say to everybody here who's talking about bullying, look in the mirror, don't bully the board members. Most of these board members run unopposed, which means nobody else wants to do it. Nobody else is up here fighting for our kids in every aspect, not just their safety, not just, who's in the cabins. They're here for the benefit of our children, doing jobs that don't look appealing to other people because people are coming up here and bullying them. So please look in the mirror when you're talking about bullying. The other thing I want to talk about is the Class 3 officers. We have nurses, we have principals, we have counselors. Why wouldn't we have somebody protecting our kids? We have a door that anybody could break down. So why do we have all these other things? We're bringing in, mental health professionals. We're having assemblies, great assemblies, about, confidence and saying yes and reaching for the stars. So we're doing all these things to protect our children, to make our children feel safe, to feel confident. So why wouldn't we make them feel confident knowing there's somebody there to protect them? There's somebody looking out for their best interest. God forbid anything should happen, because we're not immune to it. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Strauss from West Amwell. I came here tonight to talk more about the Class 3 officers, and the debate has kind of moved me in a very personal way tonight. And as everyone knows, I am part of the LGBTQI+ community. I am also part of the West Amwell community, and I personally know our West Amwell reps, and what was said was unfair. I know that you, one, are following a law. I want to thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for implementing what the state law said, and also respecting that. I think this whole thing has shown education and exposure absolutely needs to happen. It's why I live my life out how I do. It's why my kids come to this school instead of an isolated environment where they don't feel as unique as they are. When individuals are unique, as we become part of a community, the community becomes richer. And it's not just that the community becomes richer because we're part of it, but because we participate in it. So to isolate trans kids, absolutely the wrong things to do. To isolate board members and rail against them, also the wrong thing to do. I love that we can have the conversation. I love that those of us who normally don't align on certain things are aligning on this. But I do thank you, and I do think it does call for some additional exposure, some additional education around this subject, and around what brought that line into that email. Tony, I think you acknowledged that in the beginning of the meeting. I don't think it became quite as clear until we heard the public comment, but I think the doors opened. Let's do better next time, and let's help these kids, but let's also help our community understand and support these kids. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Braunstrom-Feltz from Lambertville. First time I've been on this side in a while. I wanted to come out tonight to say something that I think connects to the comments that we've been hearing, and that speaks as well to the direction that we want to go as a district. So during my term on the board, and many of you will remember, we passed a policy that affirms students' gender identity in their official documents, and allows them to be able to express who they are through their official record at the school. And that was something that was really important, and I was glad to be a part of that, as well as many members who also were part of voting for that policy as well. But I wanted to talk about the ways in which I see the connections between the buildings plans, and I was glad to see the update on the 5 to 8 building. But there are many ways in which I think we as a district have been and can continue to affirm and support all of the students that come through our doors. And something as minor seeming as having single bathrooms is a way in which we as a district can incorporate affirming design into our whole structure, into our whole day. Anybody who thinks back to middle school remembers it can be a very fraught time for any person, and having some privacy in one's day is really important, no matter how anyone identifies. And so I'm glad to see that present in that building. I would love to see that maybe even expanded to other floors if possible. But I think that's a part of the way in which we can consider through our forward future planning, incorporating spaces that recognize and affirm people to arrive as they are, and to navigate the complex situations in which they find themselves socially with the least bit of friction that we can possibly add to it. So that's something that I saw in the plan, and that I wanted to bring forward and emphasize as well, because I know in the work of the board that there's a lot of different ways in which we support, and I'm going to use the word affirm again, right, our students and who they are in their growth and development, and that this is a way in which we can continue to do that work. I was also glad to hear about their different reporting systems, because I know those are also ways in which students, whatever their concerns might be, can express them and feel that they are heard. And it's helpful also to kind of hear the feedback coming back around about how that system is being used, and the concerns are implemented. So that's really important as well. But I just want to say, I see students on the other side. I see them in college, and they talk sometimes, because of the subjects that I teach, about navigating their identities, and the more that we can support and affirm them as they take that path, I think the more we will create stronger people in the long run. So I'll say that. Okay.
Any other statements from the public? Public participation is now closed. Moving on to, we got one response.
Erica Krim, who's a teacher in the district. My name is Erica Krim, and I'm a teacher at South Hunter Regional High School. I am also the president of South Hunter Regional Education Association, but I wish to emphasize that I'm speaking on my own behalf. I understand that the concerns about the district's transgender policies have been couched in terms of it's not that we fear the trans students, we fear the policies will be taken advantage of by male predators and others. I want to point out that this fear has been researched extensively in states that have banned discrimination based on gender identity for a decade or more, and it is not borne out, period. The argument is a myth. It was used similarly to argue against desegregation efforts in the past. I have had the great honor to work closely with students who are transgender and gender fluid, and I can assure you that these arguments are painful to them. They are harmful to them, and they need to stop.
Public comment is now closed. Moving on to our agenda.
Tony, can I say something?
Sure.
I'm a graduate of this district. I'm also gay. And growing up, I endured a lot of harassment and a lot of bullying, namely being called a tomboy or asked if I'm a boy or a girl, or things that, as I grew up, I never quite realized how damaging that was to me, and as I was just trying to figure out who I was, just like everybody else. So this topic and these comments hit particularly close to home for me. What I would like to say, more than that, is that I serve with board members of great integrity, of great personal integrity, who are here for and have shown up for the right reasons time and time again. Diane and I had our first day on this board together. And I think that she is a fabulous person. And I think Kevin is also a fabulous person. We've had our differences, we've had our disagreements, but to show up here and demand their resignations or to defame them in any manner for comments that they did not personally make is inappropriate. And I would just like to say that you have my full support. I've appreciated serving with you. And I'm sorry that we were enduring this.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, buildings, grounds, transportation, finance, and safety. Diana.
And I think you have my notebook. I gave you the Wi-Fi password.
Yeah, Andrew didn't pay the bill. It doesn't work.
I'm very sorry, but can I comment on something?
No, not right now. You have to wait till you can
Next
wait till
public
the
comment. We'll have another
last
one.
public comment. Yeah.
Yep, we'll have another one. Yep.
All right. So we met March 24th, which was last week. And talked about many things that are on our agenda to be voted. So a couple of things just wanted to note. We did recently start work on the auditorium project. I know the sound system needed some upgrades in there. We tried to get it done before performances, but unfortunately was not able to do that, so it has started now, so we're in good space. We are doing a lease purchase of a new school bus that we need. We did, actually are going to be accepting a grant for around $200,000, the Bond Act Water Grant. So this was actually due to some work that we've done, facilities work in our well rooms and bottle fillers, so we're getting some money back for that. Again, also card swipe access at LPS is going to be starting. That's something that was due to our safety and security audit. And last, I don't know if it's on the agenda, but we talked about well, it was just me and Jim in committee, but we agreed that we should support a resolution to continue free meals for the students for the next school year. So with that,
That's over the summer.
Correct.
So apparently, to flesh that out a little bit, for the last couple of years, the state has funded the summer, free meals. We offer free and reduced lunches to kids who qualify. We've actually put it out there to anybody that needs it or wants it, right? That state funding is going to disappear at the end of this school year, in the end, June the 30th, right? We are interested in continuing to do that, and we are petitioning the state, along with many other districts, to ask them to reconsider that and provide funding, because it does serve a need for our community, right? We have, we have families that need, and we have been fortunate enough to be in a position to be able to provide, and we want to continue to do that. So that will be coming up probably at the April board meeting. There will be a resolution. I hope board members will consider supporting it. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to move items A through O.
And I will second that motion.
Roll call.
Discussion,
sorry.
Some discussion.
Yeah, sorry.
Is there any discussion?
Any discussion on those items?
One thing I'll mention, just wanted to highlight, so storage is a premium, right, at all locations. If you were following along last year, we had talked about one of our capital projects of putting in a significant sized pole barn on this property for storage, athletic storage. And unfortunately, based on the time and the market, it came in well over bid. So we waited and we went out to bid again just recently, and we are fortunate that it came under bid this time. So that is something else I just wanted to highlight on the agenda, and the hope is after it's approved by the board, we can get working on it pretty quickly with our contractor and possibly have it done by the start of the school year. So that's exciting, because we are, especially in this building, in desperate need of additional storage.
I have a quick question about that, Tony. In terms of the storage of, you were talking about getting everything out of LPS and before the end of the year, and storing it. Is that part of the plan for that storage, or is that
probably not? We'll probably utilize what we did kind of during COVID, where we brought in them temporary trailers that you had like right next to LPS, and we had some at West Amwell. More than likely, we'll utilize them for the year.
I think a lot of that space in the pole barn is already allocated, because it's something we've been working on for a number of years. We were looking at a shed for all the track equipment, for example, wrestling mats, a lot of that stuff, plus all of their work equipment that they use outdoors. So I would just add one other thing related to Diana's mentioned the auditorium work that's being done, and we're finally getting it started. I just want to say, for anybody who was able to go to the play, Zombie Prom, which Ms. Grimm put on, you could see why we are, that stuff is 15 years old, and you can understand why we need to do this upgrade. But B, I just want to say, that was the kids did an amazing job. And I think the most amazing thing is that the two leads had never been in a play before. And they ended up being the leads of the play, and they did a fantastic job, and all the kids did. It was so great to watch them. So that's just a little editorial.
Good point, too. Yep.
Okay, any more discussion?
All right, roll call vote. Sean Ellis?
Yes.
Jim Gallagher?
Yes.
Brian Keys?
Yes.
Sean Lewis?
Yes.
Tracy Petrucci?
Yes.
Diana Purcell?
Yes.
Megan Warner?
Yes.
Ronnie Tamarina?
Yes.
Kevin Kozlowski?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so the next item on the agenda, I just want to say a few things before we get to it. There are two resolutions for safety and security. So as was mentioned before at the February board meeting, I had spent a considerable amount of time with another individual, Marlon Webb, evaluating our safety and security. We started back in September, and basically over a period of about 5 months, worked with a variety of different constituents, from students, parents, staff members, community members, and at that meeting, recommendations was made. Specifically, I made a recommendation to go in a little bit of a different direction, more of listening to both sides and kind of understanding that safety and security was important, but could we look at another option to perhaps meet some of the needs of the different opinions that were out there. I think the other thing that came out loud and clear from the review is the changes that we made over the last year for the Class 3 officer program have worked. I think that was apparent of what we heard from our staff, from our students, compared to what it was, the year or so before that. So with that in mind, and obviously having conversations and getting input from different board members, I made the decision to put both resolutions on the agenda and for the board to really decide based on the fact that, you know, we have a program that we showed made strides and is working in a positive direction. And then we have another option as well that, you know, could be considered by the board. So for the resolution, the way this will work, first I'm going to give the opportunity if there's any board members who want to share anything before we do the actual vote. You're more than welcome to do that. And then what we'll do is we will vote first on Resolution A. And if Resolution A were to pass with 5 or more votes, then it would be not necessary to vote on Resolution B. If Resolution A does not pass, then we will move on to Resolution B. I will remind board members that you're able to vote multiple times. So if you support Resolution A, you can vote yes. If it's unsuccessful and you support Resolution B, you can vote yes. Or vice versa, or one or the other. It's really up to your choice. So before I turn it over to Andrew, who will go through the resolution and do a roll call vote, I'll open it up if there's any board members who want to make any comments before we do the actual resolution votes.
Are we
Tony, may I make a comment?
just now to make a comment or before the vote? I'm sorry.
Before the vote.
Right now it's time to make comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ronnie wants to make a comment.
Go ahead, Ronnie. You can go first, and then we'll go to Sean.
Okay. Yeah, and I apologize that I can't be there in person. I really would prefer to, have this discussion in person, but that's life in a COVID world, right? So I think the first thing that I want to say is that I really appreciate the public dialogue that we've had around this. I mean, I know that sounds strange because it's been very heated at times, and that's an understatement. But it led to really an in-depth review of our program. And it also helped us to shift our priorities in this evaluation and to really start looking better at prevention and mental health and also education of staff and kids on how they can keep themselves safe and also about reducing bias. And also through the focus group process, Tony was able to develop really relationships and foster trust with children and families of color that I think will have benefits for years to come. Tony worked really hard to make sure that our program aligns with its original intent, and we see that progress bear out through the comments and the feedback from the focus group. But I strongly believe that bringing this program in-house will allow us as a board to be more effective in ensuring that the program works for the whole district. I feel the need to reiterate what Tony said, that true compromise really ends up leaving everyone feeling mixed at best, and compromise is especially difficult, nearly impossible, when you're looking at polar opposite positions. But I also know that compromise builds stronger teams, and it's my hope that we as a board and as the communities in our district will continue to work together as we solve even the most complex problems. And so I will be supporting the campus security officer program.
Yeah, I'll make a statement. Just to piggyback on what Ronnie said, I think, unlike all of the other proposals in Mr. Souza's presentation on safety and security, which are stellar, and I applaud the whole process and everything that went into that. But the introduction of firearms into the schools, well, they're already here, but the presence of them in the schools, I don't see, and a lot of residents don't see it as a security measure, a safety measure. It actually introduces risk to the students, and for that reason, I think it's just not a good idea. So that would be my statement.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say one thing.
Sure.
Like everyone else, I appreciate all of the time you spent. Last year when the board had this discussion and Mr. Suzo said, I'll commit to taking the time to have these conversations. I commend you for following through, right? And having the conversations and really, reaching out and getting the community input. I was thrilled when I saw, most of the comments, because I think that for the most part, they showed, as Ronnie said, that the original intent of this program is we're approaching that now, right? So the changes that were made, policies and procedures that have been put in place have gotten us to a point where it seemed like a lot of people, parents, students, children of color, are comfortable with the Class 3 officer program. As I said at that meeting, I feel like we're in a good track with this. It is a program that's working, and I'd like to see it continue because I believe in the purpose behind it. I think it is for the best for our district.
Anybody else? All right, a couple things that I like to say. As being a retired law enforcement officer, I have a lot of experience. And the one thing I can say is that we put somebody in our schools that don't have a weapon. They're not going to be able to keep our kids safe fully. They are going to run and hide and lock down with everybody else. We don't give the proper tools to protect our students, they're not going to be able to protect them. Just like if we don't give our superintendent, our teachers, and our administrators the tools that they need to educate our kids and do the best job they can, they're not going to be able to do it. So we can't expect somebody that is hired to protect our students and we don't give them the proper tools to do it for them to do it and be effective. So that's why I feel that security for our schools to keep our students safe is paramount, and the only way to do that is for those officers to have the tools that they need to do that. They can't do it without it. It's impossible. So that's where I'd like to say.
Mr. Harris? Read out his resolution. For the resolution to approve the Class 3 Special Law Enforcement Officer Program for the 2022-2023.
Do we actually need a board member to make it?
Yes, we do.
I will make a motion to approve a resolution to continue the Class 3 Officer Program for the 22-23 school year.
I will second that.
Roll call vote, starting with Jim Gallagher.
Yes.
Brian Keyes.
No.
Sean Lewis.
No.
Trace Patchouli.
Yes.
Diana Purcell.
Yes.
Megan Warner.
No.
Sean Ellis.
No.
Ronnie Tommarino.
No.
Kevin Kowaleski.
Yes.
Motion fails, 4-5. Next resolution on the table is to approve the Campus Safety Officer Program for the 2022-2023 school year. I just need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the Campus Safety Officer Program for the 2022-23 school year.
I'll second.
Okay. This time we'll start with Brian Keyes.
Yes.
Sean Lewis.
Yes.
Trace Patchouli.
Yes.
Diana Purcell.
Yes.
Megan Warner.
Yes.
Sean Ellis.
No.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes.
Ronnie Tommarino.
Yes.
Kevin Kowaleski.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1. Okay.
Personnel?
Megan? Oh, we need a motion, sorry.
No. Not for her to do.
Oh, that's
Report.
right. No, it's like jumping the gun.
We met last week. Just a couple of updates. We have one retirement. We're bringing on a new bus driver. And then a couple of exciting things. A couple of substitute teachers, which are definitely hard to find these days. And then we also are approving 2 new job descriptions, which include the master teacher preschool position, which is new, coming in with the expansion of our pre-K program, and is covered by the funds that the state is providing us for the pre-K program. And then we're also looking to introduce a transportation coordinator jobs. The way it's set up right now, we have a transportation secretary, so we're just trying to kind of clean up the roles and responsibilities that go into transportation, especially with the reconfiguration of some buildings. We're definitely going to need someone who's in that position full time. And other than that, we have some approval for some volunteers who are going to help the high school softball team, and then approval for some supervisors for some activities, including Science Olympiad, Town Show, and County Step Night. With that, I will make a motion to approve items A and B.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Andrew?
Starting with Sean Lewis.
Yes.
Tracy Petrulla.
Yes.
Diana Purcell.
Yes.
Megan Warner.
Yes.
Sean Ellis.
Yes.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes.
Brian Keys.
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yes.
Kevin Kowalski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Curriculum and technology.
Okay, actually, I do have a comment on the last item that I should have said. It is great to see Science Olympiad. We have advisors that we've just approved, right? And that is a program we have not done for 2 years because we've all been hiding in our, homes and Zooming things. It is great to see that program come back. It is a fantastic program for the elementary kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and as well as for middle school kids who come down and help with that program. So it is another sign that hopefully, we are getting things up and running and getting back to a little bit normal. The curriculum committee only has one item to move this evening. That is, we are getting approval for research to be performed by Mrs. McKnight and Mrs. Quinones. This is part of their doctoral work, and it is going to be related to the Interdistrict School Choice Program, which we have been involved in since 2008 or 2009. So with that, I will make a motion to approve, authorize approving them to do that work. And I will look for a second.
Second.
Discussion? Andrew, roll call?
Tracy Petrulla.
Yes.
Diana Purcell.
Yes.
Megan Warner.
Yes.
Sean Ellis.
Ellis or Lewis?
Sorry, Sean Ellis.
Oh, yes.
My apologies. Jim Gallagher.
Yes.
Brian Keys.
Yes.
Sean Lewis.
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yes.
Kevin Kowalski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I would just say good luck with the program, and I actually hope you'll bring it back to the board for, I look forward to hearing more about it, because as I have always said, I think it's a great program that brings diversity, and some really amazing kids have come into our district through choice, and it is definitely something that we, from my perspective anyway, we will definitely be looking to continue.
Policy?
So policy did meet. We reviewed 3 policies and 2 regulations. Just short, sweet of it, student surveys, and the changes to that policy, which are mandated, as well as the policy and regulation around concussions, adding in just additional sports to make it more inclusive. And then the administration of surveys, and the last regulation, which is around special education and related services. This was highly impacted by COVID, and those who maybe would be finishing out their 21st year are now able to have an extension due to COVID to allow for them to get the necessary support that they need. And I know the district's looking into what the impact to us is on this change. So this is a first reading for the board. So I move to, ready to move? Yes. We can move those policies into review.
Just the first and second.
First.
I'll second your motion. Or Megan. One of us will.
Discussion? Andrew, roll call.
Diana Purcell.
Yes.
Megan Warner.
Yes.
Sean Ellis.
Yes.
Jim Gallagher.
Yep.
Brian Keys.
Yes.
Sean Lewis.
Yes.
Tracy Patchouli.
Yes.
Ryan Tomarino.
Yes.
Kevin Kowaleski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, school and community. Ronnie?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so school and community met, and the first thing that we discussed was, Camp Fairview and the community response to the correspondence from the school about camp cabin assignments being based on the identified gender of the students. We looked at the importance of the district's role in both communicating changes in laws, but also educating the public when there were changes, including the reasons for the changes. For example, the transgender protection laws that led to the policy, it is a law, and it comes directly from the body of research that finds that gender-affirming activities significantly reduce suicide in trans kids. But we also talked about how we as a district handle controversial topics, and how when we do a better job of anticipating all perspectives and we plan and we consider those as we plan, then as we roll out changes, that can potentially reduce the division in our districts and in our schools. So we want to put some more work around how we can do that better in the future. I often feel like when I talk about school and community, it's a repeat of a lot of the things that Tony has already shared. So the 2022-2023 calendar changes, as Tony discussed, would be the school year would start in August, on August 29th, so that we can end school earlier in the year, and that we would be using the professional development days differently, and potentially using virtual learning during inclement weather. We also discussed the preschool expansion and the formation of 3 classes that would accommodate the 45 students. As we had lower registration, but this would be more than enough than we would need, because we have 27 students currently registered, or at that time registered, and so we have 45 slots. So we would have the space to allow for 22 more students. We also discussed traffic concerns and the potential for a campaign that would remind parents that driving safely and driving considerately improves the safety for the kids, and also that children are watching and they are learning about driving. So Tony was going to bring that back to the administrative team and get some additional ideas and feedback. We finished the discussion about the financial aid policy and how the policy, as described in some of as described, is different than the process and the general practice. So then the policy should be revised for that. And we also looked at ways that we could potentially streamline applications to make sure that all kids have access to extracurricular activities, and that cost is not a barrier. And then Tony described a program that he learned about called Niche, that is a marketing tool that would promote South Hunterdon Regional School District when people are searching for school districts, potential school districts in our area. And we made the decision that although it's a great resource, it's not something that we necessarily believe that we need at this time. So I believe that I have to request a motion to approve the 2022-2023 calendar. Okay. Can I make that motion and then ask for a second?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Any discussion? Do this one as a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Routine information. Need a motion to accept harassment, intimidation. bullying report, and fire drill safety drills.
So moved. Second.
Open for discussion? All right, Andrew, roll call?
This will also be a voice vote.
Okay, so
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, now we are moving to our second part of the public comment. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your full name and municipality. Public comment is now open. Anyone like to make a statement, please come on up.
Susan Ravello, Lambertville. One of the things that I want to say is that the reason that it's called transphobia or homophobia, phobia is an intense fear. And that's really what makes this a problem. So that nowadays, you know, so many people or most people have a gay or lesbian aunt or uncle, mother or father, daughter or son, cousin, friend, so that there isn't so much of a feeling of what's foreign. I do think it's human nature to be afraid of that with which we're unfamiliar. And I think that trans people have stayed in the shadows, just like gay people used to many, many years ago. So it's really hard to get comfortable because it's unfamiliar and it's unknown. And so I see a lot of parallels between the acceptance and the education that had to happen around gay and lesbian people being accepted and getting their rights as trans people. Again, I'm for keeping all of our kids safe, and I want to keep trans kids safe by actually enforcing this policy. I want to watch what we say because the kids are listening. The kids are listening. And they are taking their cues from us, the adults. Let's be aware that when we educate ourselves and we get to really know other people who are different than we are, it is so easy to see that our human needs, our human qualities, our human vulnerabilities, and our feelings far outweigh our differences. Thank you.
Hi, Melissa Gordon, West Amwell. I probably wouldn't have noticed it before if it weren't in writing up there, but on one of the public comments, could you pull it back up? Or I think it said something about, because I recognized I was being quoted and I wanted to correct. I wanted to make it clear that this is an assumption of the person writing it. We fear that the policies will be taken advantage of by male predators and others. I want to make it very clear that I never said male predators. As a matter of fact, I know firsthand that girls can be predatory as well. And I don't think it's fair to think that only men can commit such crimes. I think it's dangerous to feel that way. I grew up admiring a long-term relationship that my aunt had with her girlfriend. So I am in no way, I'm very accepting of others, my kids are as well. It has nothing to do with that. This has to do with safety and setting a precedent for future policies. Thank you.
I'm Shara Durkee from West Amwell. I moved. No, I'm from Lambertville. And I think the comment that people are talking about was, I understand these people may feel more comfortable being in a cabin with those that they feel they identify with, but this just is opening the door for sexual assault. if the spirit of that is that girls may assault girls or boys may assault boys, then there wouldn't be cabins that were being shared at all. This is about not a trans issue, but an issue of people who are manipulating and lying and trying to get away with something, which is exactly what we do not want, which is exactly what trans people are not doing. The reason that people are trans and are willing to come out as trans is because they are living their authentic lives. And we as a society need to accept that. I've been thinking about this a lot, reading, listening, if anybody wants to talk about it. Gender, physiology, all of that, it's not straightforward. When people say girls in one cabin, boys in the other, that's vaginas in one cabin, penises in another. And there's much more to it. And it only takes one step beyond that to learn that. But by saying this opens us to sexual assault, it's a fear-mongering way of accusing trans people of trying to get in there and assault somebody else. And of course, women can commit sexual assault. Statistically, it's much, much, much rarer. And I think the vision that people often have, and the one that we hear nationally, is this boys going into girls, bathrooms and locker rooms and assaulting girls. So when I read these comments, this is not about trans, but it is couched in we need to do something about the trans people, when this is not a trans people problem. I personally, the kids I know in the district and all of the administrators, teachers, and everybody, I trust that this is it's not something that I fear, but the comment does make me think that this is a transphobic comment about boys pretending to be girls going into girls' cabins, and I'm not worried about it at all.
Hi, yeah, this is Ben West again from Lambertville. So, I mean, it seems that we're trying to walk some of this stuff back and maybe sweep it under the rug a little bit. It's obvious. It's obvious to everyone who read those comments what they meant. And I think efforts to try to hide from that are only compound the problem. And I think that as a community, we need to face up to how people really feel and how they really are. Because only by doing that can we take the responsibility for protecting the kids who need it and for trying to shape a next generation that doesn't suffer from a lot of the problems that the current one seems to. So, I'm hopeful that maybe we can do that in this community. I'm hopeful that there's enough people of goodwill that would be willing to stand up for what's right on this issue and not pretend that this didn't just happen. And this didn't happen in a vacuum. I'm going to connect this now to this vote that we just had on having cops in the schools, because it's connected. We've heard how there was this long process of evaluating whether it's right to continue having officers in the schools and whether it's helpful. And, there was a lot of evidence presented to this board that having officers in schools is harmful to the most vulnerable kids in those schools. So when we have folks getting up here and saying, and members of the board saying, that it's obviously true that having officers in the schools makes kids feel safer, that's not just ignoring, it's really silencing the evidence about how vulnerable kids really feel. I know very early on in this process there was a survey done where almost all of the kids who responded, who were kids who were non-white, said that they did have issues with the officers in the school, said that they did feel uncomfortable, that they felt watched and surveilled and treated differently, just the way trans kids were made to feel from these statements that were made in the community. So I see a connection between these two things. I think the vote that the board just took was wrong. I commend Sean Ellis for doing the right thing. It's a shame that no one else here was willing to do the same.
Before we hopefully move to an adjournment. I got to disagree with some of the last comments, and I would suggest, obviously, if you didn't follow along with the review that we did, take a look at it, because a lot of the information that you shared was inaccurate, and because we did talk to those students and spend a lot of time with those focus groups. That's the first thing. The second thing I'll say is that one of the things that came out very loud and clear through the evaluation, that it's really important that the individuals that we have in our safety and security positions are the right fit. And what I will say to you is that I feel as though right now we have 3 individuals that are absolutely the right fit. And I also want to say, because I know there's going to be questions about this, that all 3 of those individuals are also interested in the campus safety officer program that we talked about this evening. So I will be sharing more information, with the community about the program and the job description and all those different pieces, but I do want to let you know that I've had conversations with all 3 of our current Class 3 officers to determine their level of interest if the board decided to go in this direction, and all 3 are interested. So it's just something you should be aware of.
All right. If you want to come up and address us during public comment, make sure your information is accurate. If you want us to take you seriously, don't just fly by the seat of your pants, because we're not going to take you serious if you provide false information and inaccurate to the public to hear. So do your homework before you come up.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries at 9:09. Have a great night.